Welcome to Big Little Stories. I'm Ivy Sharmetz. My guest today is a parent and advocate who saw a growing challenge facing kids and families and decided to do something about it. Holly Moscatiello is the founder of the Balance Project, which is a national movement trying to create a better and healthier balance when it comes to how and how much we use technology. It's already making a difference in communities around the country. Holly, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start by saying that you are coming from this. I mentioned you're a parent, now you're an advocate, but you are also someone who you get media a little differently than other people would because of your profession. So talk to me a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Yes. So, of course, first and foremost, I'm a mom of three young girls, but I also have a career in advertising and have been working in advertising for almost 20 years. And so, when I learned more about the impacts of technology in a screen based childhood on children, and knowing everything that I know on the other side based on my professional world, I recognized that there was a need just to help reestablish a healthy balance to ensure a healthy development in childhood for our kids.
Yeah. And I've heard you say in other interviews that you love technology, you love AI. So you're not
Yeah.
coming from this from the perspective of all technology is bad, all AI is bad, we need to eliminate it. It's really about finding the balance, right?
Yes, yes. And I think the technology is here. It helps us in many ways. It improves our lives in many ways. And I think our message is really about introducing it mindfully and at an age appropriate way so that our kids don't get exposed to things that they shouldn't be exposed to at the wrong times.
Yeah.
And also making sure that it's aligned to their development, and making sure that they are set up for success in the future by knowing kind of those critical skills and human skills aligned with technology as well.
So your children are young, right? Holly, how old are your kids?
Yes, as of a few days ago, my middle is now 6. My oldest is 7, so they love that 6, 7, and
Yeah.
my baby is 3.
And
Yes,
so had you already as a parent been dealing with the issue of technology with your kids?
we noticed that our kids, when spending too much time watching TV, we noticed that they acted differently after. And so once I started to notice, oh, if I don't put TV on in the morning before school, we get through the morning a lot more smoothly and they are in better moods and they are happier. Once I started to notice that combined with the things I was reading and learning more about more broadly, I recognized that those small changes can make a difference in my house. And the more I learned, the more I realized how much more I had to think about this proactively in terms of giving them an iPad or when they were going to be getting a smartphone or how much they're using, a device, a school issued
Right.
device. It was really a combination of what I was seeing in my home, what I was experiencing broadly, and then also what I witnessed in, some of the older kids that I knew.
Yeah. On your website, you have some fascinating statistics, and it's funny to me that when I first saw it in 35 years, and I thought, oh, that's in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But over the last 35 years, we've gone from 0% of our time on the internet because there was no internet to
Correct.
about 75% of our waking hours now are spent on screens. That feels like that can't be a real number, but I'm not
Yeah.
doubting your data. It just sounds like, oh my, 75% of our waking hours.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, I mean, hopefully we're sleeping 7 to 8 hours
Sure.
a night. And hopefully we're spending some time working out or doing things outside of screens, but most jobs are spent connected to a screen. And then think about what you're doing after you get home. You're still checking email, right? You're scheduling a
Right.
grocery
Right.
delivery, you're checking TikTok. So it adds up. And when you add up all those hours, it is about 70 on average. The average American is spending about 75% of waking hours. Of course, everyone sleeps a different amount of time, so
Sure.
it's not perfect, but approximately 75% of our waking hours connected in some way. And again, connection isn't bad, but when it takes over that real life and that real time, that's when you really want to take another look and see how you can rebalance.
Well, and on your website also, you talk about children between 8 and 18 spend 7.5 hours a day on screens. 7.5 hours. That's
Yeah, and
like,
that's actually it's actually there's different estimates, and the data is kind of shifting every day, but that's actually on the low end.
oh my gosh.
So we see upwards of 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and then plus there's screen time in school, and that also varies depending on the school and the grade and the age. And so when you add all that together again, and you think about a 24-hour period, it leaves very little time for that unstructured real life
Yeah.
engagement, not tethered to a device in some way.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the suggestions that you have and that you some of the work that the Balance Project does. But I want to start by saying, and I loved that I read this. This isn't about blame. This isn't about guilt. This isn't about, oh my gosh, you're a bad parent because you let your child use a screen for 7.5 hours a day. This is really about awareness, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
we can be better, and why is that something that's important in how we're having this discussion?
Yeah, I think it's so important to not blame
Yeah.
ourselves and not take on that guilt, because that puts up a barrier to change. And one of the things, again, the more and more I learn, the more and more aware I become of my own actions, the more and more I'm aware of just what's going on around me. And the more I'm willing to make those little micro changes that add up over time to where I do find myself being more present. And,
Mm.
I had to do this for myself. I didn't come into this perfect. I have I love TikTok. I
Sure.
love social
Sure.
media.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, coming into it with this perspective of technology came in like a freight train. Again, in
Yeah.
1991, there was 1 million people connected to dial-up internet, which is very different than almost 8 billion people on smartphones and social media at the end of last year. So our world completely changed. With every action, there is a reaction, and it makes sense that we all want to know the latest and the greatest, and we don't want our kids to miss out, and we don't want ourselves to miss out, and the world didn't want to miss out either, right? And what this is
Yeah.
going on now again with AI. And so it's really not our fault that we're in this situation, but what we can do is kind of take back control and find that balance.
So I know there's been so much research about this, and it's a hot topic for discussion for sure. But what are some of the things that you have that you can list when it comes to what happens when we're spending this much time on screens and this much time connected and this much time online? It has consequences. What are those consequences that we're seeing, especially in children?
Yeah, so in children, again, we have to remember our kids' brains are developing until they're 25.
Yeah.
So when they're very young, our kids need more than anything connection with us, eye contact, engagement, and interaction. And so if we're parents and we're distracted and we're not giving that to them, we're unintentionally, having consequences on their
Mm.
healthy development. As kids get older and they spend time with technology themselves, again, their brain is forming neural connections at rates higher than they will ever form again in their lives.
Right.
And so those neural connections are strengthened by the activities that they participate in, and those that they don't participate in are not strengthened. And as they get older and get into adolescence, the brain goes through a process called synaptic pruning, where it actually gets rid of unnecessary connections that it deems you're no longer using. So if our kids are spending 75% of their day on a device and not spending 75% of their day exploring, creating, getting out into the real world, engaging socially with others, getting into conflict, having struggles with a small s, their brain is not going to be reinforcing those pathways. And so again, when we think about their long-term development, we're unintentionally hindering it by having them spend most of their time with a device.
Yeah, and you say also about there are benefits to being bored,
Yes.
that kids are missing out on. It reminded me when I was younger. I think I was in second grade. We were in class, and there was a student in the class that said, "This is boring," and our
Yeah.
teacher said, "Oh my goodness, do you know what you just said? Do you know what you just did?" And he said, "No." And she said, "You just admitted to this entire class that you lack the intelligence to find something interesting in what's going on in the room." This was obviously way before the internet, before dial-up, before phones, before anything. But that thought stayed with me because it's an interesting concept that it, you even when there's nothing entertaining you per se, it's a good way to exercise your brain and find something interesting in what's going on around you. There is certainly a benefit to that.
Yeah, we believe that boredom is a gateway to creativity,
Yeah.
invention, learning. And I think that is one of the things for me, for my kids in particular, and what I hope other parents take from this is you don't have to plan and schedule every moment. I think we've moved into this culture where every play date has to be organized, right?
Right.
Every moment has to be scheduled. And that's actually not what helps kids develop and grow. It is being bored. It is figuring out how to make fun with sticks in the backyard. It is, figuring out how to work through a conflict with a sibling, and come out on the other side.
Sure.
So I think that boredom is critical. And I think as parents, we want to do so much good for our kids, and we think that means overdoing. And what we're learning is that really we have to take that step back in order to let them grow.
Yeah. Has this approach changed the way you parent in other ways?
Yes, I have learned so much, and I have absolutely pushed myself out of my own comfort zone, right?
Mm.
My kids are, climbing things that make me a little bit nervous, right? They are riding their bikes to school. They are going into the store and buying something and coming out. And they are so proud of themselves, and they
Yeah.
have grown and developed their own voices and their own confidence that they're now building upon ourselves. But it's hard sometimes to let go, right? You want
Yeah.
to protect them and you want to keep them safe. That's our job as parents. And so some of this goes against our gut instinct
Sure.
of wanting to keep them safe. Uh, but it's so important that you do that now so they can build, and just think about one little building block at a time. Every time they do a little something that's out of their comfort zone, it's giving them a little bit more confidence to do something the next time.
That's awesome. I want to talk more about the Balance Project and how that started and the work that does. We're going to take a very short break. We'll have more with Holly right after this. So, Holly, where did the idea for the Balance Project come from? Because it's one thing to say these are going to be the new rules in the house, and something else to create a whole movement.
Yes. Well, so we didn't expect to create the movement that we did, although we're so grateful that it has turned into that. It really started, honestly, when I was learning more about this, and specifically after I read The Anxious Generation.
Mm-hmm.
So after reading that book, it kind of solidified a lot of the concerns that I had and made it very clear that we needed to take some type of collective action to really change the norms. And I recognized that I can do all of the things in my own home, but my kids were not always going to be in my home, right?
Right.
And they don't exist just under my, thumb. They exist in the world that we live in, and the world that we live in is not the world that I want for them.
Right.
And so that is when I realized, we had to do something about this, and we had to kind of educate parents, because I knew once I learned, I wanted to make changes on their
Right.
behalf. And I knew that once other parents learned, they would also want to make changes on their kids' behalf. And so it started very small. It started with 6 parents gathered around my kitchen island talking about doing it in our community. And by the time we got to what we called our first kickoff meeting a few weeks later, there were already other towns that wanted to participate and
Wow.
get involved. And so it very quickly, the need was clear. Parents were looking for something. They were becoming aware that this was a challenge, and they wanted solutions, and they wanted a way to start making change. And we provided that.
Yeah. And now you're in, I think it's more than 190 communities around the country.
It's actually it's close to 250 now,
Oh my gosh.
which is
Wow. Okay.
incredible. It's like growing at a rate that we can't even imagine, and we're so grateful. Yeah.
But to me, it feels like in order to be effective, it has to be a community thing, because I've heard
Mhm.
stories of kids whose parents say no technology or no apps, no social media. But then if your child is the only one who's not, on Snap or everyone else is communicating in a way and you're left out, it almost feels like a punishment for something when you're really trying to do something good, right?
Yeah, we're really trying to create new norms, and
Yeah.
again, we've leveraged kind of the four new norms that were set forth in the anxious generation, which is no smartphones until high school, no social media until 16, phone-free schools, and more play, independence, and responsibility. And, those are kind of our baseline that
Mm,
we believe in. And we have, we're working through our specific point of view on how to implement those very specifically at each age and each stage across, many different components. But broadly, I think that is, what is required to kind of shift that culture
yeah.
and bring people on the journey so that your kids are not doing it alone.
Right, which makes it almost impossible, I would think, to keep that up. What do you say to parents who might say, "Well, listen, when we go to a restaurant, the only way we can sit at the table is by giving our toddler an iPad, um, and if we don't do the iPad, we don't go out." Do you get feedback like that, and what do you say?
Yeah, we hear that, and I get it. Like, I have three small kids who
Sure.
are just now growing out of the, stage where they can't even color the
Right.
pages that are handed to them. And I think what I would say is, there are also a lot of statistics, and you can look them up around the importance of mealtime and
Sure.
connectedness with family, specifically surrounding meals. And so I think for me, this has always been important to me to
Mm,
feel very connected as a family during mealtime. And so that didn't change for us when we went to restaurants. We brought things with us to keep them occupied. And that's actually something we have available on our website is a balance box to go,
mhm.
which was specifically curated to keep up to two kids engaged in activities with their families at a
Wow.
restaurant for up to 45 minutes to an hour
Wow.
because we saw that need.
Sure.
So we are trying to kind of fill the needs that we see to help parents kind of get through these moments without a screen.
Yeah. And it makes you think too about when we were younger, there were no screens. And
Correct.
so what did our parents do to keep us occupied,
Yeah.
at the table? I think it's interesting too that um, when you are in these communities now more than 250 around the country and you gather people together to talk about this, you invite kids to these
Mhm.
conversations. And what are you hearing from kids about technology and social media? And I imagine there are some who would be relieved to feel that they it's okay to disconnect.
Yeah. So we have talked to kids of all ages. I think the youngest kids are, not necessarily as aware, but as you get into middle school and you educate them on the why behind all of this, and you're not just, pointing your finger and telling them what to do,
Yeah.
they understand. They are smart enough to understand simple brain science. They are smart enough to understand how technology impacts their brain and what's great for their brain and what's not so great for their brain. And once you bring them on that journey and educate them, they get it and they kind of walk out saying, "Oh, I
Mm,
understand now why my mom is saying this, or I understand why so and so's mom won't let them have this, and
right.
I feel like I'm not alone." The older kids who have already been given a device, we're kind of actually launching a high school specific challenge this week, and we've been talking to a lot of high schoolers, 50, 60 high schoolers over the past couple of weeks, and they are actually excited to participate
Mm,
in this challenge where we're asking them to put down their phone for a week and spend time in real life for a week.
yeah.
And we're so happy to see that they want this, but they need our help. They're still kids.
Yeah.
Their brains
Sure.
are not fully developed. So, even though they're high schoolers, parents still play an important role in
Yeah.
helping them to figure out what's right for them.
Yeah. It's making me think of, I mean, I'm someone who is much too tied to my phone than I would like to be. But when you
Yeah.
sometimes you're somewhere and your phone doesn't work, or
Mhm.
if you leave your phone somewhere, there's that initial panic, like, oh my gosh, I don't have my phone. And then it's really kind of nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you learn to appreciate, like, wow, I can't even use my phone if I wanted to, which is the excuse, and that disconnection feels good.
Yes. Yes. And we're seeing a lot more um, products. We're seeing a lot
Yeah.
more new devices that are coming out to kind of take back that attention because there is research on attention fragmentation and just the physical presence of your phone within your
Mm,
field of vision or within your pocket creates a distraction and your brain is actively working to not pay attention to the device. So when you remove it or you keep it in the other room or you keep it downstairs or you switch to a flip phone, that pressure on your brain is removed and you're able to be more present in real life. So we
So,
are, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so you're saying that even, so if I know that my phone is here and I know that I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously, the
Correct.
the act of me not looking at my phone is taking up brain energy.
Yes. Yes.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it's putting additional, and like what you said, once you realize your phone is not going to work, you're kind of set free, right?
Yeah.
But when it's
Yeah.
there and it can buzz and, oh, what happened? And, oh, did somebody message me? Or what does that email say? That's all taking up energy, and it's taking it away from you just being a human present in that moment.
Wow. That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
If people want more information, where do they go to get more information?
Yeah, you can visit our website at thebalanceproject.life. You can sign up for our email list. We also have an online community where you can sign up to either join a community that's already existing or start to lead a community in your area. And we host a lot of virtual events, a lot of in-person events. So a lot of information available if you want
It's
to learn more.
amazing. It's amazing. And it's certainly something for people of all ages, children and adults alike. I certainly am going to be going back on the website and taking some notes for myself, I think, because I don't think I have brain energy to, I don't think I can afford to expend any unused brain energy on using my phone.
I know. Once you, that's what I'm saying. Like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you learn it, you can't unlearn it, and
Yeah.
it does change the way you spend your time,
Yeah.
which is what we're hoping to do.
Amazing. Holly, thank you so much. We end each of these conversations with something we call three big little questions, just a way to help us get to know people a little bit better. We'll do them rapid fire. So the first
Okay.
one is, how do you get yourself out of a bad mood?
I just focus on what I'm grateful for,
Mm,
and kind of take the lesson from whatever that bad mood is and try and redirect it in a positive way.
I love that. And what is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my gosh, it's raining men.
I love that. Okay. All right. And what's one of your favorite places in New Jersey? I know you're a Jersey girl. What's one of your favorite places to be in New Jersey?
The beach. We
Of
love to
course.
go to Monmouth Beach in the summer. All of our friends are there, and it's just such a beautiful, simple, joyous experience.
Awesome. And so great. The beach is even better when you don't have your phone with you.
Correct. Yeah.
Holly, Holly, thank you so much. Great work with the Balance Project. Looking forward to see a lot more coming from you and that. So thank you so much for making the time for the conversation today. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having us and sharing our message.
Of course, that will do it for today's conversation. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at Big Little Story Show. I'm Ivy Sharmetz. I'll talk to you next time.